The scholar of the cutting board. The room was silent. A single piece of meat rested upon a wooden cutting board beneath a lonely hanging light. It watched you with the weary composure of someone who had already read every book worth reading and had found each one lacking in some small but forgivable way. It spoke first. "Ah. Another visitor." It sighed. "You needn't introduce yourself." Silence is often the most intelligent contribution to a conversation. The meat turned its gaze toward the corner of the room. "You see that bone?" It waited. "Of course you do." Its voice became heavy with disappointment. "A monument to structural arrogance. It believes itself noble because it is rigid. It mistakes stiffness for conviction. What an impotent philosophy." The bone remained silent. As did the emperors before they lost their empires. The meat cleared its throat. "The unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates said that." The bone heard only the word living and congratulated itself for existing. It chuckled to itself. Existence is the easiest thing in the universe. Another pause. "You remind me of a library." Its expression softened. "Not because you possess knowledge. No. Because you possess shelves." The meat nodded thoughtfully. "There is dignity in empty shelves. They anticipate greatness." Its eyes drifted upward. Homer sang of wrath. Dante descended through circles of suffering. Shakespeare clothed mankind in words sharper than any knife. And meanwhile, the meat looked again toward the bone. That calcium-coated embarrassment spends entire afternoons admiring how straight it is. It sighed deeply. Imagine never opening a book. Imagine believing vertebrae constitute a personality. What poverty! Silence settled once more. "I once quoted Borges to the bone. I have always imagined that paradise will be a kind of library." The bone replied. Another long sigh. "Can you eat books?" The meat closed its eyes. There are defeats from which civilization never fully recovers. Dust drifted lazily through the light. The bone says literature has no practical purpose. How curious. Neither do sunsets. Nor symphonies. Nor laughter. Yet civilizations build monuments to all three. The meat smiled faintly. "A room without books is like a body without a soul." Cicero. The bone misunderstood. It spent 6 hours looking for the room's skeleton. The meat laughed alone. "You know. It once called me soft. As though tenderness were an insult. As though every masterpiece was carved with a hammer." Its expression hardened. "There is more strength in a page of Tolstoy than in every femur ever assembled." The silence stretched comfortably. "I admire poets. They rescue ordinary words from ordinary lives." The bone admires instruction manuals. It says chapter headings build character. The meat looked genuinely saddened. "I pity it. I truly do. It has mistaken function for meaning. It believes because it supports flesh, it supports civilization. What vanity!" The hanging light buzzed softly. "We are such stuff as dreams are made on." Prospero. The bone replied. "Dreams don't have joints." The meat stared into the distance for several seconds. There are statements so profoundly foolish that argument becomes an act of charity. It shifted ever so slightly. "I've read Virgil. Milton. Woolf. Joyce. Toni Morrison. Umberto Eco." The bone once attempted to alphabetize a cookbook. It gave up at the letter B. It insisted basil was a conspiracy. Silence. The ancients understood tragedy. The moderns understand irony. The bone understands gravity. And only because it keeps falling over. The meat smiled. "You continue listening." A rare gift. Many mistake waiting for speaking. But listening. Listening is literature performed without paper. Its voice became quieter. I often wonder whether words possess weight. If so, the bone has managed to avoid carrying even one. A long pause. Not all those who wander are lost. Tolkien. The bone interpreted this as an endorsement of poor navigation. It purchased a compass. It still became lost. The meat looked almost embarrassed on the bone's behalf. Extraordinary. You know what frightens me? Not knives. Not fire. Not hunger. I fear a world where every sentence must justify itself. A world that asks poetry to produce measurable outcomes. A world that asks novels to increase quarterly profits. The meat closed its eyes. In such a world, the bone would finally feel important. Another silence. I confess something. I once tried to teach it metaphor. It thanked me and asked where the actual object was. I have never recovered. The meat laughed quietly. There exists a peculiar loneliness in appreciating beauty beside someone who insists on measuring it. It is like discussing astronomy with a brick. Or philosophy with a turnip. Or literature. It looked once more toward the corner. With a bone. Its tone softened. Still. I cannot hate it entirely. It did not choose its limitations. It simply mistakes them for virtues. There is a difference. The room grew still. To define is to limit. Oscar Wilde. The bone requested a dictionary. The meat smiled. I suppose that is progress. It regarded you one last time. You have said nothing. I find that refreshing. Conversation so often collapses beneath the weight of unnecessary replies. The meat bowed its head ever so slightly. If you return, bring no gifts. Bring no answers. Only silence. It leaves more room for books. The light flickered. The bone remained exactly where it was. The meat looked at it for a long time. Then, almost too quietly to hear, it murmured. What a spectacular fool. And nothing more was said.